All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to talk about a topic that always confuses people. It's a nice way to start the week, right? Mrs. Gressel saying, we're going to talk about something confusing. So I have turned on Work Together and On Your Own 5-4. Work Together and On Your Own 5-4. When you look at it, you're like, journal. Great. We know how to use a journal. We've been doing that for a couple chapters now. What 5-4 deals with is petty cash. Has anyone ever heard that phrase before, petty cash? Counting two of you heard of the phrase petty cash?
Yeah.
Have you done a couple things with petty cash already?
Yeah.
With your simulation? Great. Okay, so what is petty cash? Petty cash is a vocab term in section 5-4, and it deals with the fact that a business is going to keep a small amount of cash on hand to pay for stuff. Okay, so let's say we're running our business and I have something that I have to get in the mail today. So I physically need to take this item and I need to run to the post office and I need to get it mailed. Should I, as an individual, pay for it, or is that something the business should pay for? What do you think? Business, thanks, Fox, I would agree. So what the business will do is they'll keep cash set aside that an employee could take that cash, run to the post office, and pay for the postage and then have it taken care of. Because most of the time when a business is going to take care of making a payment, it's going to be with a check in our instance. So the owner of the business or whoever's authorized to sign checks would have to be there to sign it. And what is the exact amount? You don't really know until you get there. So a business will go through and they will determine how much cash they should have on hand. Okay, when I'm talking about a small amount of cash, I'm not talking about like $5 or $10. Usually you're looking at like $100, $150, or $200. Basically, however much they would need to have on hand, typically for a month. So the confusing part about 5-4 is they have us doing two things in this same transaction or on the same journal page that typically don't happen one right after each other. The first thing that we have to do is we have to establish a petty cash fund. And basically what we do is we take money out of our cash account and we put it into that account, petty cash. Now if we think about this, petty cash now is going to be a new account title. The account title for petty cash would be 120. Cash would be 110, petty cash would be 120. Remember, our assets are listed in the order of liquidity, the most easy turned into cash. First one we'll have is cash, and then we'll go for petty cash. So what we'll do is we take some money out of cash and we put it into petty cash. So we're just crediting one asset to debit the other asset. And you will only establish a petty cash fund once for the business. And then you never really deal with the account title petty cash. Which gets a little confusing because I always say, well, read the transaction and what do you see there? And you are going to see in the future the word petty cash a lot, but knowing that we're not affecting that account. So the first transaction reads, paid cash to establish a petty cash fund for $250. So that means our business went through and determined for a month that we should have $250 of cash set aside in order to make these small payments. Okay, so that should be an easy journalizing transaction. So let's do that. I don't remember what month we're on, though. What month are we on? July? So the month is July. The date is the 3rd. So we are going to credit cash and we're going to debit petty cash. So what goes in our account title? Petty cash, because cash has a special column. Source document is C57. So petty cash is going to be debited $250. Cash is going to be credited $250. And now it's the fun month of July. We had the 4th of July. We had some picnics. We had some barbecues. Business has been running and operating. We've journalized all kinds of transactions, blah, blah, blah. So I'm trying to get in here the fact that the transaction that we do on July 3rd happens, and then the business operates and it does things. Okay? And then we get that transaction on the 31st that reads, pay cash to replenish the petty cash fund, $78. Supplies, $25, miscellaneous, $8, and repairs, $45. What does that mean? So when I used funds from the petty cash and I went to the post office and other things, what I would do is I would take that receipt and I would put it physically back in this cash box that I have with the business, and we would look through those receipts, add them all up to determine, okay, this is what we spent in supplies. This was kind of miscellaneous. This would be postage or whatever it would be. So when we read that transaction, the total amount of cash that we use from petty cash is how much? What's the total value of cash you use from that account? It really says it right in the transaction. 78, right? Because when we look at it, it says replenishing petty cash fund for $78. Now, that is the amount of cash that we have to get the balance of our petty cash fund back up to $250. We have spent $25 in supplies. We have $8 in miscellaneous and $45 for repairs. And if you add up those three numbers, it should equal what Dale said, which was $78. We are not using the account title petty cash on the 31st. If you use the account title petty cash, it will not be correct. So this is always the transaction that students get wrong, because you see replenish petty cash. Oh yeah, I got to use that account title petty cash, but you don't. We are affecting our account based on what we use petty cash on. So supplies, miscellaneous, and repairs. So this is where it gets tricky, and this is always the most difficult transaction that students have for this chapter. So I'm going to put the date of the 31st, and then I need to put this in the order that they are listed here within the directions. So I have to do supplies for 25, then I'm going to do miscellaneous. So I'm going to do supplies first. Source document is going to be C97, and supplies is going to be debited for 25. The next line says miscellaneous expense, and that's going to be for 8. And then the third one is going to be repairs expense for 45. Am I done? What do you think, Kendra? Am I done?
No.
I would agree. Why? I have 3 debits, but I do not have a credit. Dale, how much is my credit going to be? $78. I keep going back to Dale because he's the one that told us. So cash has to be credited $78. And again, we know the source document here is C97, so we know that cash has to be credited here for $78. So what we are doing essentially here is writing a check to cash for $78 to account for the fact that we spent 25 in supplies, 8 in miscellaneous, and 45 in repairs. Go ahead and try on your own. I just turned on application 5-4. Application 5-4 is about as long as your work together and on your own for 5-4, so it should not take you very long to work on. But I do want to point out that I do have your study guide turned on, and that is going to be due on Friday at the end of the class period on Friday. And then application 5-4 is due tomorrow before class. I'm looking right now to have your test for next week on Tuesday. Try not to give it on a Monday. And also, as a heads up, I will not be here with you on Friday. I'm taking 20-some kids down to Milwaukee for the National Fall Leadership Conference for FBLA.